Hello, this is Steve, your YouTube English teacher, back for another week. And this week we have a slightly more traditional English class. There is a little bit less Cambridge focus because two of my private students just finished their exam. And this is what I'm doing this week in year 11, the first year of sixth form or baccalaureate, whatever you call it, where you're from. And we're talking a little bit about tourism. We've got some discussion questions, some more maybe traditional English class activities, but of course a little bit of use of English as well. The first thing I want to do is think about what tourism is. Before we talk about tourism, we have to ask, what is it? And as we can see, we always trust the first result on Google. We don't need to look any further than that, which says it's about the commercial organisation and operation of holidays and visits to places of interest. Why is it commercial? What does that mean? Why are they places of interest? What makes a place of interest? This is the kind of discussion we need to have before we start talking about our next unit in our school, which is tourism. Anyway, that's today's class. Make you think. Why are these words important? Because it's a business, and because what is an interesting place, right? This is one of the big questions we'll be asking. Right, as I said, we're starting with a little bit of use of English. Use of English part 1, which we haven't done in a while. Thinking about some useful tourist vocabulary. You need to complete each sentence with A, B, C, or D. And then, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Well, read the sentences to answer the questions, but also think about the meaning, because they are all slightly debatable or controversial or hot button issues. Is that the right phrase? Sounds like the right phrase. Related to tourism. So pause the video and complete the sentences. Then we'll look at the answers. Then we'll think about what they mean. Number 1 is customs, because we're talking about the things you do in general, not rituals. That's a bit too strong, and beliefs, again, too strong. So customs, what you do. And should you be required to follow local customs and traditions? I think in general, yes, you should make an effort to, shouldn't you? That's also what makes it interesting. I guess each person has to draw the limit on whether they're going to get up at 4 a.m. with the prayer, the local prayer and these kind of things. But to some extent, it can be interesting to follow local traditions, such as the time I went to Tunisia and I followed the custom of not eating in Ramadan and then having a great meal at 10 p.m. and it was a fun day. Example, right? Develop my answer with an example. Number 2, we're talking about the highlight of a trip, the best moment. And again, a similar point, experience local culture, hang out with locals, talk to people, see what life is really like there. Don't just stay with the tour group and with the, in the typical tourist places, but go and get lost and visit it for yourself. Number 3, the role of influencers. They shouldn't recommend specific places. You recommend something. And an example here, the typical bar that people always come to in my city to take a photo, which means I can't walk past that bar on the street because the street is always blocked, because that place is always on Instagram as a popular place to visit in my city. Number 4, talking about government limits, about the number of tourists that can arrive in a city. Little trick there, especially for Spanish speakers. They might say, enter in a city, but no, you don't enter in a city. You visit a city, you go to a city, you arrive in a city. And can we impose laws on this? It's difficult. And there are different interests who are saying yes and no, and that is the topic of what we're talking about, really. Number 5, more specifically, Airbnb, driving up accommodation prices, talking specifically about rental places where people stay and live. We're talking about accommodation. And again, does it harm local communities? Well, in some respect, yes, and in some respect, it benefits them. And that's the debate that governments and councils around the world are having on this interesting topic. Number 6, again, another specific aspects of tourism, booking things in advance. Don't you feel like an idiot when you have to pay extra because you didn't organise your trip? Don't you feel like cities are really being a little bit shameless in how they want to squeeze every last penny out of visitors and you have to pay extra because you didn't book in advance? Well, some people say it's fair. Number 7, a nice tourist phrase, of course, is sightseeing. Mass sightseeing could damage these landmarks and should be restricted. People always visiting the same place, a little bit boring. Why do you go there? Just so you can say you did it? Maybe it's better to visit other places. And number 8, again, similar point, but this time about the food. If we're talking about the food of a place in general, we're talking about the cuisine. And of course, you want to try the local cuisine. Of course, that's one of the best reasons to go somewhere, is to try something new and find interesting new things that you could then even take back home with you and incorporate into your daily meal routine. So a bit of use of English part 1, and hopefully you've had a think about what they mean and you can share your opinion and you can make this into more of a speaking topic as well. Let's continue talking about tourism with some of these debatable topics. What are the benefits of tourism? Can you take a minute? This is what we'll do in class, to think in your own words. Why do people engage in tourism? Why is it a good thing for society, for people visiting places and for people receiving visitors, for hosts and guests? Can you develop these answers as if it's a speaking exam to be able to use English to make complex points? That's what we want to do when we're learning a language. Think about consequences, examples, counterexamples, and so on. Here are some examples that my class came up with in previous years when we've spoken about this. These are all real points from real students. Obviously, it provides jobs in bars, in restaurants, in shops selling tourist tat, or the souvenir shops and all that. And all these things, they need more people because tourists provide demand. Then there's also a secondary impact, isn't there? If there's more people working here in hotels, then hotels, for example, need more towels. So someone has to clean these towels. You see laundry businesses. If there are lots of restaurants, they need food. Someone has to grow this food. If there are lots of tourist information, plaques and leaflets, someone has to translate them, which is a job I have done a couple of times. So tourism is even benefiting me. Fantastic. We can think of the infrastructure in general, transport links in general that might grow because of tourism. We can think of local culture, local way of life. It supports them. In Triana, a neighbourhood of Seville where I live, there are loads of ceramic shops, which I think are supported because tourists buy the stuff. And another student said the same was true in Italy when they went to Italy and they were buying salami, and it was mainly tourists buying them. Then the question is, does globalization fit in here, and is everywhere becoming the same because of the same kind of shops growing everywhere? And isn't it a shame to lose this local flavour? And we can also think about the inherent cultural value in visiting new places for the visitor. You broaden your horizons, you open your mind. It is just fun and interesting in itself to go somewhere you haven't been before and to see something new. What else are you going to do with your day? Sit at home and look at Instagram? No, this is better, isn't it? You exchange cultures. These kind of ideas of the benefits of tourism. But we could say the same for anti-tourist sentiments. Pause the video, take a minute to think of some reasons why people might not want tourism. And here my students said things like the environmental damage. Being specific, we're increasing pollution, we're increasing forest fires, we're increasing extreme weather events because of all of the energy that goes into moving people long distances and human activity in general. This is increasing. And then the big one that people are feeling in my city is the number of Airbnbs and tourist apartments. It becomes very difficult for local people, native people, to get a house, at least in the city. You have to go and move 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes away. And then if you want to work in the city, you are losing a big part of your day because of tourism. Rents go up and either you're paying more or you're living further away. So expressing these ideas and some others that you might have would be impressive for your English level. Final point, what can we do about this? What can we do about this idea of over-tourism? As we said before, how do we put limits on the number of flats? Do we limit the number of flights or cruise ships or trains arriving in a city? Do you need to have visas and you reject some people who say, I want to come there, and you say, no, I don't like you, you're not coming here with a visa? In Europe, we don't have this. I guess we do for people coming outside Europe, but in the Schengen area, you can travel anywhere without many questions being asked. But maybe some people think this should stop because of these reasons we've been talking about. Other key questions. Can you think of other questions you'd be interested in answering about tourism that we could then discuss and have in class like this? And finally, the last activity we'll do, this was really fun actually. I want you to prepare a trip to one of these places. And when I say prepare a trip, of course, nowadays this means using AI. So what we did in class was I asked ChatGPT for places to visit, activities to do, food to eat, phrases, what to pack, other ideas that you might have for a useful holiday. And then, this is where the learning comes in, summarize it in your own notes, what ChatGPT says, key points, key ideas that you like, that you find interesting in your own words in your notes. Then share it with the class with your computers closed. So it has gone in, so you have understood it. I've chosen these 10 places because they are all part of the series The Misadventures of Ramesh Ranganathan, which is a really fun tourism show that I enjoy as a travel show, which we then watched a little bit of in class, where he went to Ethiopia and we answered some questions that were interesting. And we can even watch him in Haiti and watch more shows like this. And we can even do some this is actually university entrance exam style activity of finding synonyms, not Cambridge style activity, but have a look at it if you want, even though I'm covering part of the text. Anyway, that's loads of activities for tourism for today. That's going to be more than a 1 hour class, maybe 2 hours, if you watch a bit of The Misadventures of Ramesh Ranganathan. Hope that was enjoyable and useful. Stay tuned for more next week. Goodbye.